Today, I'm going to be uncovering the secret battle between Trump and the EU and how Bitcoin plays an integral part in all of this. I know it sounds crazy, but it's not just me saying this. We had a recent article published by Reuters saying, hey, the EU worries that the US embracing of crypto assets could impact European financial stability. But now, why do they think that crypto and Bitcoin play an integral role in all of this? And why is the EU all of this sudden backing off on this role that Bitcoin and the EU is playing in all of this? Right? So let's dive in to this article. But first, let's set the stage here, folks. We know we've got the Lizard Lagarde in the house, who's always been very anti-Bitcoin, very anti-crypto, except for the fact that she has been trying to create a digital euro. Now, why am I worried about this digital euro? Well, because it's going to be a central bank digital currency. They've even come out and said, hey, this central bank digital currency is close right now to being unveiled. But on the flip side of things, how does this cause unstable financial stability for all of this, right? So if you guys, like myself, don't have the Reuters account, you can go to different places to find the juiciness of all of this, right? So last week, President Trump, who vowed to be a crypto president in his campaign, signed an executive order to establish the strategic reserve. Now, the Eurozone finance ministers are worried that the change of policy embrace of crypto could affect the Eurozone monetary sovereignty and financial stability. So the policy develops in other jurisdictions. And now essentially they're worried that all of these other jurisdictions are going to have a Bitcoin FOMO to see who could acquire the most amount of Bitcoin and get away from the euro. The interesting aspect of all out of this is that Trump and Howard Lutnick and others at this crypto summit came out and said, hey, we want to make the US dollar digital. Now, what does that mean? That means potentially integrating Tether. Now, Tether has a very, very big influence on the overall US government because Tether has and is one of the largest holders of US government bonds. So nobody was really holding government bonds at this time. Everybody was getting away from that 60-40 portfolio except for Tether. They were doing all of this. But the big thing that worries them is they've seen the pump and dump scam of Libra. Oh, well, this is a different one. So another Libra project. It seems like every one of these Libra projects are, pump and dump schemes. But the Libra failed early on in Facebook. And if it was successful, it could affect the Euro's area in monetary sovereignty and stability. So the interesting aspect of all of this is that Davos has been essentially breaking down and essentially getting on this Bitcoin train. We've had Davos not too long ago. And what was it? It was essentially a Bitcoin conference. In fact, today we have Larry Fink coming out and saying, hey, investors should be buying the dip. Right? Because everything that they're saying here should be something that worries you going forward, right? I mean, the European Union is worried about the euro potentially losing some power. Why are they worried about the euro potentially losing power when they're doing things like this? The European Commission to use 10 trillion euros of citizens' savings for EU defense. Now, it's absolutely crazy here how we're seeing the development of what the European Union is doing. Now, they're utilizing funds from everybody around in order to, buy up more and more, they're using everybody's funds for defense funds, right? They're using the digital euro for the potential of these things, right? But Larry Fink is coming out there and saying, of BlackRock, has said investors should, quote, buy the dip with all of this, right? Because he's seeing the writing on the wall with everything. He's seeing that, hey, the EU is trying to build this CBDC. Why are they trying to build this CBDC? It's for a control thing. It's Bitcoin or freedom, right? We've got this great website here, the Central Bank Digital Currency Tracker, the CBDC tracker. Look at all of this, right? The 44 pilot. The EU is drastically green. The only other places that are pretty close look to be Brazil and Australia. But the EU, India, Asia, China, all of these places, do you really want this? Look, Europe, look how close they are. Luckily, the US, not very close to potentially having this. But other countries around the world are starting to explore this. So they're worried that the US essentially defying everybody else and saying, hey, we do not want a CBDC, a central bank digital currency. But EU is drastically pushing for this for the control factor. And Trump embracing Bitcoin has everybody worried about the potential of what is going on here, right? They're worried about what you need to know here, right? The central bank digital currencies emerging worldwide. So don't worry, it's not just the European Union. Well, that's incorrect. I showed you guys what is going on. Trump signed a bill to say there will never be a CBDC in the United States, right? But it seems like that is essentially what we're getting into, right? The digital euro has not been launched, though there are signs, that it's going to come sooner rather than later. The projection is by October of this year. We're sitting here in March, folks. That's not too long away. I hope you guys know that. It is not too far away to get to March, right? But we're seeing this. They want to launch this CBDC. Lagarde has come out and said that it's close. They're working on this digital euro. A digital euro would be a digital form of cash. Come on. What kind of lie is that? We all know that cash, hey, if I were to give you guys $20 here, who would know that transaction actually occurred? Nobody would know. If I had $10,000 hiding under my mattress today, you wouldn't know that, right? But a CBDC, fully digital, everybody would know everything that's going on, every transaction that takes place, right? So it's everybody in the European area, right? But they're concerned here. They're concerned with what is going on. Why is the European Union concerned over the US crypto policies? Well, it is the digital dollar, right? Everybody is looking at what the US is doing because the US holds all the power in this case, right? Because we've got what everybody wants, right? We've got the dollar. The global reserve currency currently. But the Trump administration has signaled a drastic shift in that cryptocurrency policy. He signed an executive order to establish that strategic reserve, right? It's a Bitcoin reserve too. And I think everybody is honestly just not looking at what the digital stockpile reserve, crypto reserve, what that all entailed, right? So let's break this down here for a second, folks, because a lot of people didn't, a lot of things on the internet that you're seeing, Solana, ADA, whatever, all of these shit coins have been kind of thrown into it. That's incorrect. They're keeping all of the crypto tokens that have been seized, not planning to buy anymore, and they're looking for new ways on how to obtain more Bitcoin, but by not utilizing taxpayer dollars. So as Davey Crockett in the chat is saying, I love the name. He says, it's just USDT or USDC controlled by the banks from how I see it. Just in the EU's case, it's the European Union's equivalent. Well, see, this is the problem here is USDT and USDC, those are privatized companies. So, okay, that is a difference, right? Privatized companies compared to the central banks doing it, right? So As All Nighter Hider is saying, cash carries anonymity, which is correct. And Bitcoin is digital gold. More questionable are the shit coins. And I agree here, Davy Crockett. And that's what worries me about that, right? I think that we should be worried about what the EU is doing here. And my man, All Nighter Hider, the GOAT in the chat, always saying smoke the like Cheech and Chong. So I appreciate you coming in on here. But if we're looking at this here, right? They're trying to essentially create this digital euro with everything that is going on, right? They're worried about the Bitcoin strategic reserve. And one thing that is kind of interesting with all of this, right, is that, Trump creating this, he's saying, hey, we should have the digital Fort Knox, which is kind of interesting because we don't necessarily know how much Bitcoin the US has. It hasn't been audited, similarly to Fort Knox. So everything that they're saying here, it is kind of funny, and it looks at, what all is going on, right? This digital crypto, what is it, right? But the strategic Bitcoin reserve and digital asset stockpile, two different things, right? It came on the eve of the crypto summit, after hours, I might add, when people did not realize what was going on, right? So what they're saying here is, what my man All Nighter Hider is saying is, when the currency is controlled by commercial banks, those banks act as an intermediary between us and the central banks. That go between is a good thing for us to keep us in some kind of decentralization. And I agree. The more checks and balances, the less control those guys at the government have, right? So that's why I think it's a good and positive thing here, for us to have those privatized banks, even though, as we've seen, the potential of these privatized banks, they can freeze banks accounts. We've seen it from many celebrities around the globe. My man Ye, he got his account seized or account frozen. They didn't freeze Jeffrey Epstein's at JP Morgan. But it's interesting. Everybody's got eyes on this, right? Even CNN Business with this headline, it cracks me up. A non-crypto person's guide to the Bitcoin strategic reserve. What does this all mean? What does this say? Under Trump's executive order, the U.S. would essentially consolidate all Bitcoin it has seized through criminal and civil forfeitures and hold it as a reserve asset. So the proponents of the move have said the reserve will act as a hedge against the financial instability. So why do they say, the EU, why are they saying that this will cause financial instability when the whole purpose of this thing was to hedge against it, to try to avoid it, right? It's interesting that the EU thinks that this will create more financial instability, when in reality, it'll probably do the opposite. The argument for the reserve is basically that there's very small chance that the Federal Reserve could completely mismanage the dollar. It's a small chance. But in that case, things like gold and Bitcoin do become a hedge against the dollar debasement. So they're already trying to preface it, hey, there's a small chance. I know us in the Bitcoin space, we all scream from the rooftops, this could happen. It's going to happen, right? But in reality, a lot of people want to, give some sort of positive thing going here, right? They don't want you to necessarily think, hey, this is definitely 1,000% going to happen. They don't want to send everybody screaming from the rooftops here, right? This is why when we see Bitcoin crashing, they're not super worried. They're not going all in just yet. When we see Bitcoin crashing to 82,000, right? These big red candles that we've been seeing all year, down 12%. But if you zoom out, folks, we'll be okay. And, with, I had a great video yesterday or the other day about, what is going on between the two markets and why we're seeing this crash. But I think in reality, everybody wants to have that anonymity. Anybody wants to have that, their own stockpile to get away from these things. That's why I've partnered with the great company at the Bitcoin Well, folks. You can go to bitcoinwell.com/green candle. You could sign up by entering your email. They give you wishing well tokens. I usually give away some free sats. I might not do it today on the stream, but I usually give away some free sats where you can win up to 1 million sats. So every time you buy Bitcoin, they're giving you another chance to win 1 million sats with the wishing well tokens. They're absolute lunatics, and they force you to put it in self-custody because it's strictly non-custodial. So you have no counterparty risk. They're a publicly traded company in Canada, and they've got the best OTC desk. So if you're looking at this price, you could buy a full Bitcoin for 80 G's, folks. A full Bitcoin. That's 21. There's only 21 million of those. There's more millionaires in the world right now than there are Bitcoin. That'll ever be. So you could buy that, and that will be maybe the next billionaire club, right? Of you being able to own a full coin. And watch what they do, not what they say, right? I mean, or check out what they're saying here, right? We're seeing the EU that have always been anti-crypto, as Davy Crockett is saying here. They want to control you, folks. They want to control everything that you're doing. Lizard Lagarde, she's trying to slither her way in there. Look at this. Look at how many European countries. You guys saw what happened 4 years ago, right? You guys all saw that. Somebody ate a bat and something crazy happened. Obviously, that's a tongue-in-cheek joke. But we're seeing that they're trying to keep this control going. And you guys need to watch out for that. Now, I'm going to keep this one a little bit short. I just released a great podcast episode with my man Carr. I'm putting it here in the chat. I encourage you guys all to go back to the channel. Go watch that. I just released it here 15 minutes ago. He's a legend down here in Pleb Lab in Austin. I'm going to be speaking at Startup Day tomorrow. So if you guys are in Austin for South by Southwest, come and holler at your boy. Make fun of these crazy glasses I got on. But I'm going to keep this one short. As my man All Nighter Hider always says, smoke it like Cheech and Chong. Smoke that like button. Hit the subscribe button. And go check out that latest interview with Carr. Thank you guys all for tuning in. And hopefully we'll get some more bullish news here going forward, because I think that we're about to pop. And I think everybody should not be worried going forward.